Good day and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built by Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. By White Plains Hospital, also by Michael Labriola Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk, and by Tompkins Mahopac Bank. We are joined by Steve Greenberg. Steve Greenberg, Siena College, Pollster here. Siena College, of course, just outside Albany. And Steve Greenberg, welcome back to Westchester Talk Radio. It's been an interesting month of polls you have conducted, and you conducted a number of polls about the fate or potential fate, or where exactly does he stand right now, Governor Andrew Cuomo?
Exactly right. Although I will just clarify, we did one poll that we released at the beginning of this month that
but
had
in different sections, right?
Yeah, a whole bunch of different issues in there. So let's start with the basics on Andrew Cuomo. Right now, 45% of voters have a favorable view of Andrew Cuomo. 47% have an unfavorable view. Close to break even, a little bit underwater, virtually unchanged from last month, or I should say from May. His overall job performance, 41% positive, 56% negative, underwater. Again, very little change from May. But we asked a new question this month, because if you think about it, Andrew Cuomo can do one of three things. Here we are now, 11 months from a potential primary for governor and any other statewide office, and about 15, 16 months away from the general election in next year in 2022. So what does Andrew Cuomo do? He could resign, as some leaders have called upon him to do. He could continue to serve out this term for another year and a half and decide not to run for re-election, or he can continue to serve out his term and he can run for re-election. And that's the option he says he's doing. So we said to voters, here are the three things Andrew Cuomo can do. Which of those three is the thing you'd like him to do? So 23% of New Yorkers say they'd like the governor to resign right now, a little under a quarter. 39% of voters, a plurality, say, serve out the rest of your term, but please, governor, don't run again. And then another 33%, a third of New York voters, said, governor, serve out this term, and you know what? Go for a fourth term next year as well. So if you break it down, what you see is you put together the 23 and the 39% of voters. So you have 1/3 of voters, 33%, who would like Andrew Cuomo to run for re-election next year, versus 62%, a clear majority of voters who say, governor, don't run for re-election. Now, some of them say, get out today. A majority of those 62% say, no, don't leave right now, but please don't run again.
How much do you think the upcoming, whenever upcoming, we put it in quotes, might be, results of the myriad of investigations into Andrew Cuomo, when they come out, how much do you think those will play a role in what he decides to do?
Yes. Look, I think obviously he certainly, but I think the rest of New Yorkers are waiting to see the results of what Attorney General Letitia James and her investigators find. I anticipate she will issue a report on her findings. I don't know when. Probably sometime in the next few weeks, maybe sometime in the next few months. She has not indicated what the timing will be. We have the Assembly Judiciary Committee doing an investigation for impeachment. And that's a question we also ask voters. Should the Assembly impeach the governor? Right now, only 35% of New Yorkers say they should impeach. 45%, a plurality, certainly not a strong majority, but a 10-point margin, 45 to 35% voters say they shouldn't impeach. But we have the Assembly judiciary impeachment inquiry going on. They've hired outside counsel. They are expected to hold public hearings at some point, and they will release a report. Plus, we know that the Eastern District of New York, the federal courts based in Brooklyn, are looking at the whole issue of the nursing homes and the state's reporting about nursing homes. So I think any or all of those things are going to change the landscape. How they will change the landscape, obviously, I don't know. It'll depend on what they find and what their report says, what actions get taken from there, and what the public's reaction is. And I think, the governor obviously always keeps his ear very close to the ground in terms of public opinion and what the public's thinking. And I'm sure he's watching that closely now, and will certainly be watching it as those events unfold over the coming months.
Results of these investigations, a lot of it, of course, as you alluded to, they are hand in hand with the way Andrew Cuomo conducted himself during the pandemic regarding nursing homes. Where the pandemic is right now in New York State, what do New Yorkers say?
Well, in terms of the governor, it's interesting. I mean, we see a clear majority who say they don't want the governor to run again. His favorability rating is meh, break even. But when we asked voters, do you approve or disapprove of the way Governor Cuomo has managed the pandemic, 51% approve compared to 32% who disapprove. And then we asked some specifics on the pandemic. Managing New York's vaccination program, and by a 66 to 20% margin, voters give him a good grade. Keeping New Yorkers informed with accurate information, 60 to 27, New Yorkers give him a good grade. Overseeing the reopening, by a 54 to 33% margin, voters give him a good grade. But when it comes to the issue of addressing questions about his handling of the nursing home issue, by a 60 to 22% margin, voters give him bad grades. They disapprove of the job that he has done in terms of that, including a plurality of Democrats. Should say on those the other three specific pandemic approval questions, Democrats are overwhelmingly with the governor, giving him good grades. Independents, a majority in each question, give him a good grade. Republicans don't give him good grades, although on the issue of managing vaccines, not a majority, but a plurality of Republicans by a 47 to 38% margin. It's the only question on this survey that Republicans give Andrew Cuomo a good grade on.
What are the top issues for New Yorkers right now?
Well, there are a lot of top issues. There are a lot of issues that voters said are important priorities to them that they want to see Albany address. Issues like crime, education, infrastructure, economic equity, racial justice, and all of those score high. But then we said to voters, okay, really the number one top priority, which is the issue that matters most to you that Albany lawmakers and the governor work on. Crime is the number one, 32%, nearly a third of voters say that's their top choice. Education, 22% of voters say that's their top choice. Economic equity, 16%. Racial justice, 14%. Infrastructure comes up last, although it's close, at 13%.
How about the pandemic?
Well, we didn't actually give that to voters as a choice, given where we're at right now in terms of the pandemic. These were sort of the issues as we're coming out of the pandemic that seem to be getting the most attention, both at the national level and the state level, and certainly at local levels when it comes to crime and education. But what's really interesting about those numbers is if we look at it by certain breakdowns. So if we look at just Democrats, what they have to say in terms of this is infrastructure is the least important to Democrats by far. But among the other four, they're all within 2 or 3 points of each other. Democrats are divided. About a quarter of Democrats think it's crime, about a quarter think it's education, about a quarter think it's economic equity, and about a quarter think it's racial justice.
So some of these Democrats, I guess, don't care if the roads and bridges fall down.
Well, again, we ask them to make the top priority. Republicans overwhelmingly say crime. Interestingly, Democrats, it is the top issue, although by a much narrower margin, as I just said. But every demographic group by party, region, race, religion, made gender, made crime their number one issue, with just 2 exceptions, or 3 exceptions, I should say. Black voters, their number one issue, racial justice. And for Latino voters and voters under 35, those 2 groups said education is their most important issue.
So we have a wide variety of thought processes going on around this state.
Absolutely, which is why, we've heard the politicians say, we've got to be able to walk and chew gum. Well, that's what the voters expect, because they have a lot of priorities they want you to address.
Or as somebody said to me when I was a guest on another show a few days ago in White Plains, they said, what do you think Westchesterites are worried about most? And I guess the list went on and on like you had there. And that host said, boy, people in Westchester have a lot to think about and worry about, I guess. I said, yeah, come to think of it, maybe they do. So Steve Greenberg, Siena College pollster here, Siena College, just outside Albany here on Westchester Talk Radio. On the Beat in Westchester is our show. I'm John Marino, WestchesterTalkRadio.com, produced by Sharc Creative. Steve, your new polling also took into account a couple of constitutional amendment issues, too.
Sure. The voters will have about 5 constitutional amendments on the ballot this year. We want to take a look at a couple of them, particularly the ones that deal with voting. So under New York's Constitution right now, the only way you can get an absentee ballot is by filling out a form that says you will either be outside of your county on election day, or that you are ill or disabled or otherwise unable to go to your polling place. Last year, because of the pandemic, we had no excuse absentee. For any reason at all, you could get an absentee ballot. So there was a constitutional amendment. And what's interesting is this is really not a result of the pandemic, because in order for a constitutional amendment to come to the voters like they are this November, it had to be passed by 2 successive legislatures. So actually, this first passed the legislature to have this no excuse absentee ballot in 2019, pre-pandemic. But we asked voters, do you support or oppose that amendment? And by a margin of 55 to 35%, voters approved. I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised that it wasn't a larger margin in support. But what we see is 70% of Democrats support it, a bare plurality, but 47% of independents support it, 47 to 39. But by a 2-to-1 margin, 63 to 30%, Republicans oppose it. And then the second one dealing with voting is to allow for same-day registration. Right now, you can only register to vote up until 10 days before Election Day. This would enable you or anyone to register to vote 9 days out, 8 days out, even up to and including Election Day. And this is a little bit narrower. But voters support it, but by a 52 to 39% margin. And once again, what we see is Democrats overwhelmingly support it. A plurality of independents support it, but Republicans by a 2-to-1 margin oppose it. And I think a piece of that is just what we're seeing among New York Republicans is what we're seeing among Republicans nationally in terms of concern about voting issues.
The Biden administration has had a lot to deal with. Leftovers from the Trump administration, new issues that have propped up and cropped up since Joe Biden took office as president. What do New Yorkers, a few months now into his administration, think about the job he is doing?
Well, 5-6 months into his administration, voters are happy with Joe Biden. Right now, 63% of voters have a favorable view of Biden. 34% have an unfavorable view. When it comes to his job performance, 52% say he's doing an excellent or good job, compared to 46% who say he's doing only a fair or poor job, and very little change over the last month or two. We see it, over the last 3-4 months. What we see is go up a point or two, go down a point or two. So really holding in that, mid 60s for favorability, low 50s to mid 50s for job performance. But of course, we do see the wide partisan divide. 84% of Democrats have a favorable view of the president. 51% of independents have a favorable view, but 71% of Republicans view Joe Biden unfavorably.
Do New Yorkers think our best days are ahead of us?
Thankfully, it gave me some hope in my fellow New Yorkers, by a 2-1 margin. 53% of New Yorkers say our best days are still to come. Only 27%, a little over a quarter of New Yorkers say our best days are behind us. 62% of Democrats say our best days are still to come. By a 48 to 30% margin, independents say our best days are still to come. But Republicans, they are a more depressed group right now. 42% of Republicans say our best days are behind us. Only 40% say our best days are still to come. So Republicans sort of evenly divided on that issue.
I guess if we had a Republican president, those numbers might be reversed, right?
We see that all the time, as you correctly point out, and not just on questions like this. Obviously, the president's ratings would be flipped as they were when Trump was president. But also you see it in the question that we ask every month: is New York State and is the United States on the right track or headed in the wrong direction? We saw such a flip in December. Republicans thought the country was on the right track, and Democrats were a little less negative than they were because it was post-election. But then when we got to January and February, it completely flipped, so that right now Republicans think the country is way off in the wrong direction, and Democrats overwhelmingly think the country is headed in the right direction. So,
or as they say, Steve, 6 of one, half dozen of another, right?
Exactly.
Or as we would do on the block in the old days growing up, we'd flip a coin, right?
Yeah, because we did not do rock, paper, scissors back in the day.
I had some trick coins, so I won't get into that. All right, Steve. Good to talk to you, as always. Steve.
You too, John.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Greenberg, Siena College Pollster. Siena College, just outside Albany here on the Beat In Westchester, Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. I'm John Marino. Great to have you with us here on Westchester Talk Radio, and we are made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. By Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, by White Plains Hospital, and by Michael Abriola, Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk, along with Tompkins Mahopac Bank. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube, and get the Westchester Talk Radio app. Download it. It's called Westchester Talk. Take it with you everywhere you go.